Welcome to the I'm In podcast, where you learn to unleash your creative genius, live a more abundant life, and change your world. And now, your host, Heather Hodges.
Today's guest is a bold entrepreneur and passionate advocate for the next generation who believes that young people deserve the chance to discover who they are before they decide where they're going. Riley Simpson is the founder of LeapYear, a life accelerator for high school graduates. And on the Hodges 12, Riley is a connector, synthesizer, teacher. Oh, and Riley is also a graduate of Abilene Christian University, so he's a fellow Wildcat. Riley, welcome to the show.
Awesome. Thank you, Heather. I'm honored to be here, and go Wildcats.
Absolutely. Go Wildcats. And so for our audience to know as well, I met you through, a friend of mine who is actually the best man at our wedding, who's also your uncle.
That's right. Yes. Yeah. It was such a fun connection. We were like Uncle Ryan, as he's known affectionately by not just his nephews and nieces, but actually tons of young men and women around the world, is like an adventurer and was taking me on an adventure. And we got to stop by your house. So I was so glad to get to meet you.
Well, lovely to meet you too. Yeah, and Ryan Simpson, we were at ACU together. So he was in my year, but he is best friends with my husband and has been since they were in grade school together, playing little dribblers as little kids. So Uncle Ryan's been part of our family, part of our world for 30 years. So
I love it.
What a fun. And that adventure, oh my gosh, that y'all were going on. Yes. What an adventure. You were on your way to.
Yeah, we were on our way to Hawaii, which was really exciting for both of us. It was both of our first times being on any of the islands. And it was wonderful. We got to see beautiful things. We got to go on really great hikes. One of them included a place where there was a danger of death. So that was exhilarating. However, the island was completely swamped by a really big storm. We were feeling really sorry for some of the people on the island whose homes were damaged, and we were feeling a little bit sorry for ourselves, which is much less important, who didn't get to go in the ocean, which is one of the things that you really hope for in Hawaii. But that's okay. Next time.
So just a massive storm, flooding.
Yes. Hikes
where death is a risk. And you didn't get to touch the ocean.
But hey, I mean, overall, it was an adventure. We had a lot of fun and got to catch up, which is overdue. So
yeah, I mean, that's the most important part.
And we were grateful for you all, because y'all were like the perfect people to talk to right before the trip, like the Hawaii experts over here.
But you didn't get to do all the things that we were hoping you were going to get to do. But I'm so glad you had that adventure, and hopefully you can go back, take your wife next time and just get in the ocean.
That's what I told Molly. I said, I went and I scoped out all the things so I know exactly what we need to do and exactly what to avoid. And that way, it was a trip just to scout for you. I didn't get in the water because I didn't want to ruin it. I want to wait for you. So anyway, we made it work.
There you go. That sounds like quite an adventure. I'm just glad you got home safely as well, because I know flights were canceled and everything was pretty rough. So welcome home. So
Thanks.
that's great. And thank you for taking the Hodges 12 assessment. And just you are a connector, a synthesizer, and a teacher. And for our listeners who are new to the Hodges 12, a connector solves problems just by intuitively seeing potential matches between people and opportunities, maybe resources. And a synthesizer integrates insights across multiple fields, multiple domains, and they kind of weave together diverse information into new solutions. And then a teacher is exactly what we think it is. A teacher solves problems by breaking down complex concepts and equipping others with knowledge and tools and resources to help them grow. And so, Riley, I'm curious that, that's a profile that is made for exactly what you are doing right now in your world. You are connecting young people to possibilities. You're synthesizing a better path forward. You're turning around and teaching them how to walk in that new life. And I cannot wait to dig into what your creative genius trifecta looks like for you. But I'm curious, When you first saw those results, what was your reaction?
Oh, that's a great question. Yeah, I think, I think the first two made total sense to me. Like the connector and synthesizer piece have been a big part of what people even recognize just like about me. They're like, oh, you're constantly connecting different ideas. I've had a lot of domain experiences. And so I think about that often when I'm, pulling things together and trying to, move forward. And then the connector piece too, I've just always loved finding ways to get to know people, ask great questions. And then one of my joys is just like literally connecting people. Just, hey, you need to meet this person, or this person would be great for your job, or whatever that might be. The teacher actually did surprise me a little bit. I think that once I got into it and started reading through it, it made a ton of sense. And it also made me feel like, oh, of course, what I'm doing is what I'm doing, like, building experiences. Like I liked what it said. Learning experiences that transform what people know and can do. Innovative ways to help others develop new skills and understanding. And I think that's so at the heart of like what I'm trying to do with LeapYear. I have a lot of beliefs about education broadly and how it's been maybe abused or disrupted and just isn't always effective. And so I really love to kind of innovate in that space. And so that part surprised me at the beginning because I wouldn't have called myself a teacher. As I kind of got into it, it's like, oh yeah, I love this kind of thing.
Yeah. So before you took the Hodges 12, would you have considered yourself creative?
Yes, I would. Yeah, I would tell people I'm creative for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. And can you point to a specific time in the last 6 months or the last year or whatever, where you were like, okay, yep, my creativity is in full force right now?
Yes. I'll give you an example from like 2 weeks ago. I would honestly, to come back to kind of the trifecta, one of the things that people have told me when they've heard about LeapYear and they've heard about what we're doing is they're like, wow, you just took everything you love and you put it in a business. and I think that's so true. And so it's really allowed me to be super creative in all of the things that we're building. I mean, we went from absolute nothing to an entire 12-month program within the span of 12 months. And so getting to just like build that from scratch has required a lot of creativity. And I would say like 2 weeks ago, I was on a call with someone. We were thinking about how do we create something that's valuable to parents, even if they choose never to work with LeapYear. And so we were just thinking about that, just like, hey, we want to create something that's valuable for them and kind of can build some trust. Because right now there's just so few people know about us, right? And so we decided to build this parent guide that would be specifically for how to approach this like senior year with your kid. There's just so much tension at play. And this year, there's so much pressure on the senior and the parents. There's a lot of things that can kind of create friction relationally, but it's also an incredible opportunity because it's this year where you're kind of like creating the transition between being what Andy Stanley would call like the coach stage of parenting, and you're moving towards this stage of parenting that he would call the consulting phase. And so really there's this like opportunity the senior year of high school for parents to position themselves as a trusted advisor and mentor to their student. And that is sort of tricky because I think a lot of times parents experience, well, I give them advice and they just kind of roll their eyes, or they
don't take it.
Yeah, they nod their head, but they don't actually do anything. And so we've had to get really creative with, our team. We have expertise across the board of like a woman who built curriculum for Stanford, and then has gone on to be an expert in vocational wayfinding, is what she would call it. We've got a woman who's been coaching at this kind of transitional stage of senior year of high school for like 20 years. We've got a PhD theologian who's worked at like vocation and calling and how do you think about that? And he specifically works with college students. And then you got me, who's had like, hundreds of conversations with parents at this point and students in this phase. And so from what we've learned, it's like, hey, actually, when you approach this conversation from a place of curiosity and you take this posture of wanting to draw out insight from your student rather than prescribe advice to them, obviously you're still going to be a guide to them, but how you go about the conversation really matters. And so there's just been a lot of work of, hey, getting inside the parent's head on that, like being creative and how we write that guide. That's just it's a small example from the last couple of weeks that I've been really engaged in and have really enjoyed working on.
Wow. So you just saw that need and thought, okay, let's put something together to fill that gap.
Yeah. We just believe that parents are the most influential figure in a person's formation, or at least they can be. And so when we are thinking about Leap Year and bringing students into a year that really at the end of the day is about forming people of character, and like helping them like take responsibility of their own formation, we just really want to partner with parents in that. We don't want to like separate the parent from the student in that. And the nature of the relationship does change. We've just seen a lot of parents and students struggle with that shift.
Tell me more about Leap Year, about the program. It sounds like it's relatively new, but how does it happen? Can you just start me from the beginning?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so it's really new. I was previously working in venture capital, and then I went full time to launch Leap Year last January. So we're like a month. I mean, we're like a year and a month old or something, like something like that. We got our first cohort of students launched in August of last year. So if you want to count from like when the program's actually been active, we're even younger than that. But to kind of answer your question, Leap Year it's an answer to what we see as like a broken pathway to adulthood in America. And we just see that like students, especially those that are coming of age right now, 17, 18, 19 years old, they're being faced with like three, major challenges that I would argue kind of define the cultural moment for them. And I'm going to be really brief with these. We can come back to them in a minute. But those challenges are one, I think education has abandoned its original purpose and it started to break its promises. And so I would say the purpose was, cultivate wise, discerning, critical thinking citizens. And then the promise has kind of shifted, it abandoned that for something that we would call credentialism. And while credentials are still somewhat helpful, the promise that they used to be, which is if you get them, you'll be secured a job forever, that promise is starting to break down. So that's the first challenge. The second one is that when we look at kind of the landscape in America, we see this massive deficit in leaders of character. And we believe that it's really important to have people to look up to. And that also that like a nation, a company, any kind of culture is going to be defined by the leaders. And so we, one, believe that students need better role models, and two, believe that we can actually shape these students into the leaders of the future. And then three, we're looking at this kind of cultural moment and saying, hey, Gen Z has been labeled as the anxious generation. Jonathan Haidt, an amazing social psychologist, wrote a book by that title, The Anxious Generation. And, it's true. Like, this is the most anxious, depressed, isolated generation we've maybe ever seen. I would even go a step further, though, to say it's not just anxious, but I really think there's been almost a hollowing out of our generation where we see, this like really deep sense of meaninglessness. There's like a real big hunger to be a part of something bigger than oneself, but not sure what that could look like. And so I frame all of that to say that students are facing some big challenges as they come of age. And we think in response to those challenges, they need a new way, a new pathway. And so that's what Leap Year is. It's a year, 12-month program that's specifically designed to meet them in this moment and prepare them to be the leaders of their generation. And so we have combined three things: career design, which is a methodology of taking design thinking out of Stanford and IDEO and applying it to your life and career. We've taken leadership foundations, which is basically this kind of belief that if you're going to lead other people, you first need to lead yourself. And then we've taken spiritual formation, which is to say, hey, at the foundation of all this, more important than what your career will look like or how you will lead, is like, what story are you a part of? And we would posit that you're a part of the story of God, that He created you, and that there's a lot of identity in that story, and that you actually have a role to play in the story that's still unfolding. And so we could go into more of like the specifics, but that's kind of the why and a little bit of the what we're up to.
Yeah. So the problem you're solving is massive. Like this.
I mean, I think there's a lot of, I'd like to think of it as like we're trying to solve many different problems, but there's a little bit of a societal one.
No, truly. And those 3 things that you identified from the education, the promises that have been broken there, the deficit in quality leadership role models, and then the anxious, hollowed out, meaningless feeling that Gen Z is experiencing. I mean, one of those alone is monumental. But when you combine them into this generation, there's a lot to solve there, Riley. So,
Well, we're not going to solve it all, but what we believe is that these students are actually incredibly high potential. And instead of talking about what we're concerned about with them, or like, talking down to them, which I see a lot of people doing, we just want to like step into a role where we can create the unique blend of experiences, of exemplars or people to look up to, and of community to actually help them become the people who will fix the problems that we just are talking about. That's the goal.
Yeah. Well, I could not agree more with you about the potential and the value that Gen Z brings to the world. And I'm raising 2 Gen Z sons, or have raised. They're grown, they're launched. But my heart is, reaches out to some of the angst that I hear you talking about. And I know that a lot of our listeners are probably raising, or have raised the Gen Z generation. So truly, truly monumental. So career development, leadership foundations, and then spiritual foundations. So, wow. So how does that happen? Tell me more about the program. How do you get into the program? You say you launched your first cohort. Are they co-located? How does that all happen?
Yeah, great questions. So basically, we're really big on the fact that formation is best practiced or done in person. And so we launched in Austin. All of our students are in Austin. And the cohort comes together. There's an application process. And we kind of launch with this big 5-day retreat, which is where students are meeting each other for the first time. We're doing a lot of kind of like setup for the year. And then what happens over these 12 months is we enter into this rhythm on a monthly basis where we're doing a few different things. The course of the year kind of has 3 phases. The first is foundations, where we're kind of like, building in the frameworks and the mental models that we want students to activate through the year. The second piece is what we would call exploration, which is a kind of a season where it's like, hey, we're doing as much as we can to like, really diverge and like go get as many broad experiences as we can, seek out some big questions. And then we come into application, which is the phase we actually just entered with our current cohort, where we, the whole kind of last 3 months is around executing this capstone, which is kind of like meant to be their biggest bet on what they think might be next, and kind of like building work that they're proud of. Throughout the year, that rhythm looks like coming together as a cohort. Every day at 6:30 in the morning for our 6:30 club. So it's like this 15-minute call. Students are getting out of bed, getting up, starting the day strong. But then on a weekly basis, students are coming together. They're meeting with their coach, individual coach, for an hour every week, and then they're coming together as a cohort for co-working time, for a spiritual formation session where we're kind of like doing discussion, and out of that comes practices that we actually practice together. So like this year, a lot of our students fasted for the first time and practiced Sabbath for the first time, and like just entering into like the rhythms of we would look at Jesus's life and say, hey, these are some of the things he invites us into. And then like on Fridays, we're doing intensives about twice a month. So these are like full day workshops where, yes, there's teaching, but mostly there's like, hey, we want to engage students in like practicing a skill that they're going to take into what we would then call their career sprints. And so this is like the bulk of the work a student is up to during LeapYear. It's a flywheel method that we've developed out of this like design thinking work, which is to say, hey, there's a really simple framework for kind of discerning your way forward in uncertainty. And then also like actually learning, how do you answer this big question, which is, like, what am I going to do with my life? And that's such a big question. And it's really an unhelpful question to start with. And so our kind of philosophy that guides everything that we just talked about is to say, hey, instead of starting with, what are you going to do? Let's start with the bigger questions of who are you? What are you great at? what do you love? What does the world need? And who are you becoming? And those are really big questions. They're lifelong questions. But we believe if you can get started on answering them, they'll actually line up for you to help you answer that big, hairy question of what should I do next?
Yeah.
So anyway, the program includes like you're doing aptitude assessments at the beginning. You're like doing all these different kind of exercises to like figure out what am I curious about? That's a silly sounding exercise, but like most 18-year-olds I talk to, they would actually tell you, I don't know, or they'll name one or two things, but in reality they have like so many curiosities, and you just kind of have to like tap into those. I kind of believe that school in some ways is like working really hard to like beat curiosity out of you. And so part of our work is to say like, how do we revive that and then help you to, through this flywheel method, pursue those curiosities. So that flywheel is know yourself, get curious, focus, talk to people, try things, reflect. And guess what? When you reflect, you're actually knowing yourself better, which brings you back to the top. And so anyway, we could get into more of that, but.
And then you just push that flywheel and then it starts going.
You push the flywheel, you run a bunch of sprints, you kind of go after that. And every time you go through the loop, you can start at the top again and make it a bigger experiment or a smaller one, whatever it looks like.
Yeah. So what are some of the massive learnings that you yourself have experienced this last year since the cohort began in August?
Oh, so many things. I think the biggest thing I've learned, and this is maybe not about the program itself, but just about life, is that entrepreneurship is maybe the fastest way to self-development. And I say that because I really feel like starting this company was like setting up a mirror that just like reflected every single mistake or weakness I had and made me stare it down every day. And so whenever you're leading something and starting something, there's no one else to blame. There's not anyone else to kind of like look at or turn to or point a finger at whenever something goes wrong or something is breaking or it's not, accomplishing the vision you had. And so I think my biggest learning so far has just been a humility to embrace, oh, wow, yeah, I've got a lot of work to do. And then also just a resilience to say, okay, I am going to recognize my own weakness here, but I'm also going to have to like move forward. And so what does it look like? For me, that's actually been a learning around how do I truly move away from self-reliance and how do I move into like reliance on God? And that's something I haven't learned, but I am currently learning.
Yeah. So entrepreneurship is like the microwave or the pressure cooker environment. It just accelerates.
Yes.
All of the development.
Absolutely. I bet you've experienced things like this.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
Well, I've been a serial entrepreneur throughout my life. So starting one venture or, another. And you're right. You learn so much about yourself. And from my experience, your flaws get exposed quickly.
Yes.
Because there's no cover. Like it's you.
Yeah.
So
That's right. Yeah. I think, in the book, Good to Great, there's this great, description of what kind of a leader is actually needed for companies to thrive. And the insight was, most people think about leadership, and we talk about this with our students, right? Leadership development that we're doing. Most people think of a leader and they think of someone who's very charismatic, who's like very like in front and leading the charge. And yet the leaders that were found to have, created the most success in their companies were actually leaders that were defined as people who sometimes were people who were very soft-spoken or, very thoughtful or almost more introverted. But what was true of them, no matter what kind of personality type they had, is that they did this thing where they had a practice of whenever something went well, they would look out the window, as in attributing the success to something that was not them, whether it was a higher power or to their team or to even luck. But whenever something went wrong, they would look in the mirror and look for like, hey, what did I do that caused this? And so I'm learning to adopt that posture and trying and aspiring towards it.
That is, first of all, hard, but also admirable. As a a burgeoning entrepreneur. So impressive, Riley. Just that's really cool.
Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate that, Heather. There's a lot of people I've gotten to learn from, and I'm really grateful for lots of incredible examples.
Truly, a turtle on a fence post didn't get there by themselves.
I like that. That's good.
Yeah.
That's great. That sounds like a West Texas saying. I don't know.
Isn't it though? I'm a good old Texas girl.
That's
so
great.
yeah, turtle on a fence post. It's,
awesome.
Yeah. If you ever see that, there was something else involved. So,
I love it. I love it. So true.
Well, when you think about your best creative thinking time, your best creative problem solving, what environments or what conditions bring out that in you? Like, where are you when all that's happening, or what's going on around you?
Mm-hmm. I'm actually learning so much about this. I feel like in past roles, I haven't had the freedom to just be totally creative all the time. And so because this is a company I've created, I get to I'm trying to, maximize how do I thrive? And then how does everyone on my team thrive? And how do we kind of build towards that? And something that I've learned really recently is that I am sometimes most creative when doing what we're doing right now, which is to say, like, yes, I get on a call with people, or I'm in a room with my team, and I just have lots of ideas where I'm pulling things together, or I am able to like speak better than I can write sometimes. Like someone will ask me a question and it'll prompt something that allows me to just like flow for a while. And like what we've loved about the advent of like AI in the workforce is that like all these like meeting transcripts and the ways that we can capture it. For me, that's been so helpful because I will say something and I'll just like go back and pull it from the transcript and basically it's ready to go.
Yeah.
So that's been really helpful. And I think for me, that's about surrounding myself with the right people as well.
Yeah.
People that ask good questions, people that push back. It's so hard. I don't know if you've experienced this. When I find someone who will challenge my ideas or push back or say, I don't think that's great. I feel like that person is like gold. Like there's just, it just feels like there's so few people. And I'm always trying to create an environment where people feel safe to do that. But I also just find that personality wise, like it's kind of rare. And so when I find someone who's willing to do that, I think that sharpens my ideas so much. It helps me be more creative. So that was one setting. The other setting is just like when I go on long walks, and especially if I'm like in the mountains or in some like beautiful setting and I'm alone and I kind of let myself get bored, which you can't be bored whenever you're in the mountains, but that's the other time where I find like kind of my best creative insights.
Yeah. Yeah. But there's a lot of research to support what you're talking about. They call it the shower effect. When you go on a walk or you're swinging in a hammock and you are bored, and by bored, what I mean by bored is like no screens, no podcast.
Yep.
You're just letting yourself and letting your mind wander.
Yes.
Is that what you're talking about?
Absolutely. And I think that more and more we have to like really fight for those moments.
Yeah.
Like at least I do. I find myself so inundated with, notifications and screens. I don't know if this is a lot, but recently one thing I've been learning, I get 120 text messages a day.
Goodness.
And I just think that's way too many. I don't know. I don't know how to do
Who all has your phone number, Riley? Come on.
Too many people. I've really thought about getting another phone number and just like, creating an autoresponder on this one, but I don't want to seem like a jerk. I don't know. I'm just like, how do you protect, that time where you're just like letting your mind wander? For me, it's hard, and it's not even something that I really realize I need to do until I do it,
Yeah, when we first wake up and the first thing we do is reach for our phone or pop in the AirPods and you're listening to a podcast or getting the news or whatever, or even in the car. Like it seems like our society is opposed to silence.
Yeah.
And we need that space to generate the most and productive creative solutions to our problems and just to think.
Yes.
Like we're just, it's muchness, hurriness, noise. It's everywhere. So,
absolutely. I think getting in touch with like your creative genius too, like just requires it. Like even if other settings are helpful, like there's some amount of pause and reflection that's needed. We do this in LeapYear actually. Like at the retreat, it's a 5-day retreat, and it's a completely tech-free retreat. So like students turn in all of their devices.
Yeah.
It's pretty hard for them, some of them, but like they had some beautiful
imagine.
insights coming out of it. Like one of my students said, I didn't realize that I treat my phone like a pacifier. Like if I'm excited, really excited, or if I'm like really upset, I will just go to it. Like, it's just like whenever I have big emotions, I find myself on my phone. And I was like, that's a beautiful insight for you as a 17-year-old. That's going to change your life, you know? And moving from that, like we move into this kind of attention audit that students do, where they're like journaling daily on, hey, where did my attention go today? And this is our first step of our leadership like foundations, is to say, hey, you're the first person to lead is yourself. The most valuable resource you have is your attention. And it's actually so valuable that companies are spending billions of dollars to try to extract it from you. And so how are you going to protect your attention, recognize where it's going, and direct it on purpose? And so they do that, followed by a digital detox, which we actually adapt from Cal Newport's work on like digital minimalism.
Yeah.
And it's so fun. Like, I mean, I just love what you're doing, because I think that I just 100% agree with your premise that humans are intrinsically creative. And I think we need this space away from all this tech that we've created, which I love, which is great. We need this space away from it to like tap into that kind of natural creativity. And so we want to give that to people while they're still really young.
Oh, I love it. Oh my gosh. Well, thank you for that, first of all. And I couldn't agree more. I think that human creativity is one of the most precious commodities we have right now. And I love AI. I think technology is moving in a really fun direction. I think there's a lot of things we need to pay attention to and be cautious of. But at the end of the day, the creativity that humans bring to the world is becoming even more precious and more valuable because of AI and where technology is going. And one of my dearest hopes and dreams and aspirations for Gen Z, Gen Alpha, and Gen Beta, whoever comes next, whatever we name that generation, is that they do tap into and understand themselves so much that they understand their creative genius and how they are intrinsically designed to create, and then unleash that on the world, because we're not only going to get new products and processes and services from that, but people feel more truly alive when they're using their creativity. And that's the kind of world that I want. And it sounds like, you're working towards that same thing, just from that different angle with LeapYear. So, oh my gosh.
Yeah, I love that. I think, if I can, the way we think about it and the way that we teach it with students, and I think this just totally lines up with what you're talking about, is so everything we're doing is contextualized in this story, the story of God. And the story of God begins in a garden. And it begins there because I really believe it's not so much trying to make a historical or even a scientific argument as much as it's trying to make an identity argument. Who is God and who are you? And so that's what Genesis is really about. And what it does is it imbues humanity with these kind of, original callings to create and to cultivate. And so whenever we think about, this story that these students are entering into, we want to just talk to them about what does it look like to fully participate in that story, to come fully alive into who God has uniquely designed you to be, and then to image him as the creator into your work. And I think the really big thing that I love about what you're saying is yes, as AI begins to shape so much of how we think and work, we have to really tuned in to our humanity. And I think that when we look at that with our students, what we're really interested in, what I'm actually really about, what I would say my mission is beyond LeapYear, is I want to empower these young people to be the leaders who give their generation a new name. So when I think about this idea of the anxious generation, I think that's a name, it's a label that doesn't need to stick. And so when I've gone to these students and I've talked to them, I've gotten to do these really incredible sessions with students, with a couple hundred students even in a room, where I get a huge whiteboard and we just say, hey, what are all the things that other people have labeled you? What have they, said about you that you feel like is unfair or untrue or just that you don't like? And when they are asked that question, they can like rattle off the list. We've been called screenagers, we've been called anxious, lazy, all these labels that are so harmful and derogative. And yet when I had asked them the flip question, I asked them, what do you want to be known for? That's when I just see this like incredible creativity and this like spark like come alive in them. And they say things that are just absolutely beautiful. Like the thing that has stuck with me the most is a student that said, we want to be the generation that takes ownership for everything we've been handed, doesn't complain about it, but gets to work on redeeming it. In other words, we want to be known as the redemptive generation. And that kind of language just gets me so fired up. And I think it's exactly why a tool like yours is so helpful, because I want to equip these students with this like awareness of how they were made, how they were gifted, so that they can give it to the world. And I think there's so much to do there. And I think that's a part of what it looks like to join God in his mission now of, restoration and shalom that he's up to in the world. And that ties all the way back to kind of what he was up to in the garden as well.
Oh my gosh. Brilliant synthesis of your work and mine. Oh my gosh. Look at that creative genius coming out.
There it is.
Yeah. The connector, the synthesis, the teacher, all in one. Amazing human. Riley, I love this conversation so much. And we're coming up against our time, but before I let you go, do you have a few minutes to take a couple questions from from Percy? Because Percy's such a pest sometimes, but he's an amazing research assistant. But he's knocking here at the door. Percy, are you there? Come on in, Percy. All right, Percy, come on.
I'm so excited.
I know, Percy. Here comes. Okay, Percy's first question, which you don't know about yet, but Percy's first question for you comes from a previous guest, Trey Reese, out of Georgia. He's the COO of Brightmoor Hospice. And Trey wants to know, what is your growing edge right now? What are you working on?
Oh, man. So what am I working on to grow for myself? Is that the question? Wow.
That's the question.
Oh, gosh. I just feel like there's so many things. Okay, the honest truth, and this may go to we didn't touch on it a lot, but there's some shadow stuff in the way that you think about your connector, synthesizer, teacher. I'll tell you what my growth edge is, and you can tell me if this kind of fits with what your profile is.
Okay.
But I think my growth edge right now, and this is hard to admit, is I'm really trying to be a person of my word. And what I mean by that is I'm constantly making little micro commitments. This is really raw for me. Even the other day, I promised my wife I would be done in 30 minutes with something, and it took me 50 minutes. And it doesn't sound like a big deal, but those 20 minutes are just 20 minutes of broken trust. And that is not the kind of person I want to be. And I find myself being in little situations like this where I tell someone I'll get something to them the next day, and it takes another 24 hours or something like that. And it just feels yucky. It feels like I'm living in kind of an incoherence with my values, and that's the thing. That's the thing I'm really working on right now. Yeah,
I can see that though, because you want to deliver. And you want to deliver every time. You want to go the extra mile, and sometimes that takes more of you than you anticipate.
Absolutely. Yeah. I wonder, if it's something that you would see in other connector types. I think there's this abundance of opportunities that comes, and it's hard for me to say no. And so, I sometimes default to giving a yes that maybe I'm not actually prepared in the moment to deliver on. And that's a big, dangerous trap. So trying to pay attention to that.
Yeah. And I think your synthesizer plays a role in that too, because what I've noticed with other synthesizers is that they need more data, more information. Let me research that just a little bit more, and then they fall into that trap of gathering information instead of producing something and just shipping it, or it takes longer to do that than you anticipate it. So
that's totally, absolutely, 100%.
Yeah,
got me to a T.
Right.
Yeah,
so that's the growth edge. So
that's the growth edge.
What are you going to do about it?
Oh man, I actually I have a guy who's just a super close. He's both my preacher and my best friend. And so I actually already told him about it and just was like, hey, look, I need to grow here, and I need to grow in all areas of my life, but especially I need to grow in my marriage with this is the most important connection and relationship I have to be beholden to. And so help me out here. I'm going to be accountable to you. We're going to check in on a weekly basis of like, hey, am I sticking to the commitments there that I'm making? So that's the first step for me, is just, bring some accountability in.
That's awesome. My preacher is my best friend too.
That's awesome. There you go. That's right. That's so right. And I mean, you guys are at a whole nother level, than me and my friend here.
Well, yeah, we've been at it almost, we will have been married 30 years in October.
Wow. Congratulations.
So,
that's awesome and beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's, I'm so thankful for him and his giftings, and that he's giving me another day, another week. We'll see if it works out or not. But
I think it's going to work out. You guys have built something really special, and even just getting to come into your home and experience the hospitality that you two provided was a lot of fun. It was just really evident that you guys have all kinds of complementary, traits and gifts.
Well, thank you for that. And having you and Uncle Ryan here the other day was just, well, what a treat that was. Okay, but Percy's second question for you is, what question would you like to ask a future guest?
Oh, that's a meta question.
Yeah.
That's so
what
good.
You
got? Let's see. I think I want to ask a future guest, what genius out of the creative geniuses do they most want to learn from?
Ooh.
That's what I want to know.
Awesome. How would you answer that?
Oh man. Okay. That put me on the spot with my own question. That's great. That's so smart. I'm looking at this wheel, but it's so tiny. I'm trying to make sure I can see them all. I think I really, want to learn from more people in like the functional genius. I think sometimes that thing that you just pointed out about Synthesizer, about not being able to ship something because you just want to do a little more research. I've noticed that my friends who have the functional kind of genius domain are often better at just like getting work moving. And a lot of times they're doing something it feels a little more tangible to me. And so there's a more implicit iterative process.
Yeah.
And I want to learn like, hey, how do you deal with that? How do you just like move forward on something? I would love to ask them all about that.
Awesome. Yeah. I've noticed that with builders in particular.
Okay.
They get out there and they just make it like, okay, let's just, and then iterate. Like they will fly the plane while they're building the plane, and they don't have to wait for it to be perfect.
Totally.
So
that's so good. Well, I gotta go talk to my builder friends then.
Oh, totally. Awesome. Well, Riley, this has been such a fun conversation. Thank you so much. Where can our listeners find you or learn more about LeapYear?
No, Heather, it's been a blast. Thanks for having me. I think the best place to find me is going to be LinkedIn.
Okay.
Just look up Riley Simpson, make it easy for you. And then I would say the second place is you could just go to startleapyear.com. Okay. And that's going to be a place to kind of check out what we're up to.
And we didn't talk about this before, but would you be open to coming back? I feel like we just got started on our conversation, and I would love to continue this if you are open to exploring more.
Oh my
next
gosh.
time.
Of course. This is a blast. I would love that. Yes.
Okay. Well, and you're the first Gen Z I've had on the podcast.
Wow,
my podcast is produced by a Gen Z, but I haven't had a guest yet. So thank you. Oh my
gosh. My students are going to laugh at that if they listen to this, because they're like, yeah, you barely qualify for Gen Z, man. Like, I mean,
you're like the grandpa.
That's exactly right. That's what they're telling me too.
Of Gen Zs. Yeah.
I actually know what a VHS was, so there's
Me too.
Crazy place.
Well, Riley, thank you so much for being here today.
Heather, thank you for having me. It was such a gift. Talk soon.
All right. Take care. And thank you to our listeners for joining us today. And if you haven't followed this podcast yet, please hit that follow button and you will be the first to know when a new episode drops. And I would love it if you would leave a review. It helps more people find us and join the conversation. So until next time, keep saying I'm into creativity and bold thinking, transformational growth, and meaningful conversations. May you be wildly creative in your life and leadership. I'll see you soon.